You can always expect the unexpected in a player-driven world like Eco. And this unplanned exploit I'm going to talk about turned into what might be one of the biggest socio-economic revolutions I have yet to experience. So this all started with a law we put into place to tax people for their properties. It was very simple. For every land claim laid in the world, the citizen was taxed 2 coins. We realized though that this could be a little damaging for brand new players coming into the server. It takes a little while to get yourself established, build a house or a store, start creating some product, maybe even needing to build a road to your establishment and just all that. It takes a little time. So, an exemption was put into place for newer players that delayed the property tax from kicking in until you had played long enough to earn your second skill. DadSpeed is a very slow progression server, so gaining and taking that second skill does take a little while. You're not going to get that in the first day or two. We had some other laws with a similar delay that was based on the number of play hours a person had in the game, but that didn't seem quite as balanced as we wanted. Some players come in and immediately grind really hard to get themselves set up and essentially min-max their beginning gameplay to get the immediate generation of maximum skill points. There's nothing wrong with that, but DadSpeed is a little more laid back and casual of a server, so people that wanted to take their time, maybe even spend a few hours surveying potential build sites, and wanted to slow roll getting that first building set up where they're not really even generating any skill points for several days, wasn't really fair compared to the heavy grinder. The same amount of time would pass, but they'd be at completely different levels of progression. So what we put in place was a bit more universal, and it was to delay the property tax until you had decided to take your second skill specialization. The intent of this law was clearly to give new players a break, which it did, but it had an unexpected side effect, one we never saw coming. Some players decided to completely avoid paying any property tax at all, forever. They did this by intentionally keeping themselves limited to having only one skill. Now you might be thinking that doing that would limit a person's ability to produce products.
Exactly.
Contribute to the economy, have a nice income for themselves to buy whatever they wanted, basically always keeping themselves a bit suppressed. But it didn't. The robust economy that was present on this server was founded on providing multiple types of opportunities for a wide range of players. We encouraged people to always buy products at a slightly higher price than the average selling price to provide an ever-present job for transporting material. The government was constantly producing contracts to build facilities, construct roads, perform labor, a whole variety of work that didn't require having a skill at all. In fact, many of the contracts might actually restrict who was eligible if they held a given skill. For instance, a potter that makes bricks would not be eligible to accept a contract for building a brick retaining wall. We wanted the contractor to buy the bricks from someone else who would make profit off supplying them, and pay the contractor some money for placing the bricks down. This is where the amazing part kicked in. The people that decided to only single skill themselves on the server wound up being the most eligible for these contracts, and naturally evolved into a primary builder on the server. Others, who had taken 4 or 5 skills, were more limited in the contracts they could take and were spending a lot of their efforts supplying all the products for the builders. Both groups were kept extremely busy. These single-skilled builders were spending a lot of their game time designing and erecting fantastic structures all over the server, and creating a natural demand for all those products produced by what was now the suppliers. It really was a little bit of an exploit to the property tax exemption that led to all of this. It could have been handled a couple different ways. We could have changed the law to use the previously described play hours for the exemption. but instead decided to just let it play out a little while and see where it would go. It was interesting that this is largely a builder-crafter game, and by pure coincidence we had stumbled into a segregation of roles that led to having builders and crafters. Having the tax exemption created a strong incentive to self-restrict your number of skills. Years of DadSpeed had determined that taking chains of skills that self-feed the materials you need to create your own products is detrimental to the economy. If you're able to produce all the materials you need, then there's no reason to trade with other players and stimulate the economy. So these single-skilled individuals were actually providing the biggest economic input just by producing one kind of product that they had to sell to other players in order to acquire the things they wanted. If everyone just took one skill and produced one thing, imagine all the buying and selling that would happen on a given server.
Whatever happened to the rich getting richer and the poor getting poor?
So what was perceived as an exploit to the property tax was actually one of the biggest economic stimulus programs the government had come up with. It was a total accident. Note, this idea of being a single-skilled person who only makes one type of product and generates the rest of their income through the government-funded build programs isn't for everybody. A lot of people are much more into the actual production of goods. They like taking in raw materials, cranking out parts, selling trucks and tractors and excavators, and generally just like being able to do different kinds of things. Maybe smelt some iron bars, produce some fertilizer, cook some food, and just have a lot of different kinds of things going on to do during the game. It makes them have to build a variety of different factories and stores and things like that. There was definitely room and the ability to have both kinds of playstyles on the server together in this natural fallout of builders versus suppliers, and it worked well together. We decided to even further incentivize these two socio-economic groups that were forming. The payout for builders who are doing lots of building could be increased a little bit over when a supplier is doing the building. Again, no barriers or preventions there. The suppliers could still build. It was just an incentive for the single-skilled builders. And our sales tax that we applied to every store owner during a transaction could be reduced when the transaction was happening from a supplier-owned store. That way suppliers could sell things and get taxed a little less, stimulating their economy of supplying goods. This builder versus supplier meta was something no one had ever seen before. It was a brand new structure that organically evolved on the server from the creativity of the players. And having this happen near the start of our 6th month of DadSpeed Season 4 was also incredible. The server was far from stale, and there was a lot of activity happening, as I'd talked about in my 5-month overview, but having a brand new dynamic form between groups of players was undoubtedly going to inject some possibilities, some fresh excitement, new or revised laws, more creative niches for the players to discover. It was going to be really amazing to see where all this would lead. But then, Game Update 9.3.3. We did the update. The heartbeat of the world stuttered, then stopped beating. Admins rushed to the scene, their skilled hands moving as quickly as they could.
His hands were moving faster than I could see, trying to stay ahead of each breakdown.
Trying to patch one error, and then another.
Repolarize one pathway and another would collapse.
Failures cascading 2 numbers to count, and with little or no information in the logs to help troubleshoot the problem.
He refused to give up.
As painful as it was, after a few days, we realized that Season 4 had probably run its full course. It was born out of the major game update of 9.0, and it lived through 3 significant updates of 9.1, 9.2, and even the original 9.3. But the patches and minor updates of 9.3.3 caught up to our aging world and its backwards compatibility.
She won't survive much longer.
We pull the plug. Let Season 4 rest in the unforgettable memory of its citizens.
There was nothing anyone could have done.
And started working on the rebirth for Season 5. And if you're still watching, then you're lucky enough to be eligible for a free Eco Game Package giveaway. To be eligible for the drawing, just type in the word Ecology into the comments at the end of this video or any other video I produce this month, and the drawing will happen at the end of May 2021. So my eco coverage isn't over, but will be mixed with other games, different kinds of coverage, and broadening of the channel, including some plans and work already started on a couple other eco videos, pricing guides, and all sorts of things. So stick around. I'll be talking to you later.